Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events, and welcome to our program today. Now, what we do on our program is we kind of take an individual film and we kind of critique, analyze, and have a general conversation about this film. It's usually myself, as always, and of course, I bring in a special guest. Now, you're lucky because this month that you're listening to this podcast happens to be our very special and experimental month that we're calling our franchise month. So, just to give you a little bit of background on that, what we try and do is we kind of take all the individual films within a franchise and then we give each one of them their own special care and love, their own individual episode, so that you as a listener can either decide to listen to each episode based on each movie, or you can just pick the ones that you like. We're hoping that you listen to them all because we all know here as Conversations in Horror that sometimes the sequels are not nearly as good as the originals, and then there are some franchises where they get into the fourth and fifth film and you just don't really care about them, or you've never seen them or heard about them. So with that, I'm going to tell you the franchise that we are talking about today. If you didn't already get the memo when you looked at the episode title, is the Cloverfield franchise. And with this one, we're actually talking about the original film Cloverfield. So it's going to be very interesting because we all know that this film kind of came out when found footage films were really, really popular. But thankfully, the sequels never stuck with that. So to talk about Cloverfield with me today, I brought on one of my special guests. His name is Philip Ray. I want to thank you, Philip, for joining us back for the Cloverfield franchise, because me and him are discussing these films, and it's been quite fun.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we all know. I'm assuming this is one of those films where the first film in a franchise where each film is sequel is not so connected. But this is the film that pretty much mostly the audiences here has actually seen, because it was before, found footage films became passe. This was at the very beginning of the trend, and so a lot of people had seen this film. So I kind of want to know, how'd you see this film first, and what was your impressions? Did you see it at the theater? Did you see it on video? Kind of tell me how you came into the Cloverfield world with this film.
So Cloverfield, I saw it in theaters and I was obsessed with it. I remember when when they first announced it, which was done very cryptically. It was kind of just dropped before the first Transformers, Michael Bay Transformer movie with no title, and eventually the title came because everyone remembers the trailer of the Statue of Liberty head falling and all we knew was that a monster was attacking New York. And this movie, I will already say, um, I loved it. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. The thing I think why I like this movie so much is because the marketing is what really sold this movie. Because I was one of those, they kept a lot of things quiet. I mean, they did never showed the monster in any of the trailers, which is unheard of nowadays. Because
Mm-hmm.
now you see a movie and they're like, "Oh, here's the monster." And this movie, they never showed it. Again, you only saw was just the Statue of Liberty head getting like knocked to the ground and stuff, and the characters seeing it, and that's all you knew. And so there was so much speculation about what the monster looked like, and I was all in on it. I was following it, trying to figure out what the monster looked like. I remember there was speculation of what this was potentially might be a Godzilla movie. Uh,
I do
was
remember that
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, people thought it was a Godzilla movie. People thought it was going to be a Voltron movie at one point. Like there was so much speculation of what this movie was going to be, what the monster looks like. Like I remember, people thought like the monster was hidden in the poster itself. There was this cloud that people are like, oh, that if you look at it like this, it looks like a monster, or oh, if you looked back there in the city, you could see the monster there, or people were like, oh, it's this giant whale creature. Like, for the listeners and stuff, you can look this stuff up and you can find all of these like concept arts that people made where they thought this is what the monster's going to look like. This is what the monster's going to
Mhm.
look like. None of them were accurate. There was they again to give the listeners a backstory of what this was back in 2008. They actually made MySpace accounts for all of the characters. I believe it's MySpace. I want to make sure I'm saying that right.
Was this
Uh,
back then with MySpace? Oh my God! So you might be right about that. Oh,
yeah, it was MySpace. So they made MySpace accounts for all the characters and stuff. So like people were scanning the MySpace stuff to get like context about the movie. There was a whole thing where they showed like there was all these like references to the slush show and all these other things. So like there was a clip online where like they were talking about, oh, this bad disaster happening to this oil thing, with the implication that this connected to the monster and stuff. And again, it's just such, in my opinion, this is the best marketing I've ever seen for a movie, because they built up people's uh, suspension about what the movie was about, what the monster looked like, and it's so and again, people wanted to go see this movie. You never will see something like that ever again. You will never see a movie drop its trailer without even giving its title out. You would never see a movie nowadays not show the monster. This was a blink moment that is just so fascinating to me that I think the marketing alone was what made this movie more memorable than the movie itself could be.
mm. No, no, I'll agree with you. That was one of the reasons why I originally saw the movie at the theater too. I love the teaser trailer, not knowing anything about the movie before seeing it. I thought that was a really brilliant concept, you know. And I dig stuff like that. I remember when I saw the trailer for the Blair Witch Project before it became popular, when it was still just when it was originally playing at like colleges and shit, kind of like Paranormal Activity, you know, before he got that marketing kind of pushed it off to general audiences, you know. What I really loved about this when I saw it on the weekend it came out is that, like you and like me, that fucking theater was packed with people. And I actually love watching movies with I don't see as many like that as I wished I had back then, now as I did back then. But when I saw this movie, and this is the reason why I love this movie, and I think it's one of the epitomes of the great examples of a great found footage movie, is the fact that when I saw this in the movie theater, you had those people yelling at the screen, and then you had those people who were complaining about the freaking. It was funny. They were complaining about the motion sickness when the movie was over. I was like, really? Because I ain't get no fucking motion sickness. What movie were you watching? I was like,
I didn't get it either, but I can see how this movie, I can see how people could get the motion sickness, but it's for me like, yeah, of course the screen's going to be shaky the entire time and stuff. It's freaking characters trying to survive a freaking monster attack.
I I kind of thought there was probably more fucking shaky cam in the original Blair Witch Project than I did in this movie. That's because they had to be strategic on how everything was shot, because they had to incorporate all the CGI eventually. You know, you can't be having complete shaky cam when you have fucking CGI elements to add later.
Oh yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing is like throughout the movie and stuff, you again, they did it. It's kind of similar to Jaws to a sense of like at the beginning, you're getting small clips of the monster. You're seeing its tail. You see it like maybe briefly like running across a building as it's getting attacked or it's attacking and stuff. You never. It's not until the end of the movie do you finally have your like you have your close up moment where you finally see the creature in its all full design. But throughout the movie, again, you're getting these little pieces of the creature and what it looks like and all that. And there's so much like throughout the movie, there's so much smart filmmaking. This was Matt Reeves' first movie, who again, I like Matt Reeves's movies generally. Actually, that's not correct. Matt Reeves had done one movie before that called The Pallbearer, which I never saw. But this was for me my first time seeing like the first Matt Reeves movie I had seen, and definitely like there was so much care put into this. Uh, Again, I could gush all day about some of the editing and small little things that they sprinkle in throughout the movie and stuff to make you guess. But again, the way they handled the monster was great.
Yeah, well, and keep it, and I think they handle a lot of the elements in here very well. Like I love the when I rewatched the film, I had forgotten this one little element. I had forgotten that the tape that they're recording all this on was originally a tape that already had stuff on it. So you're seeing, the original footage that it as who's his main character? HUD. When he turns off the camera, you'll see the residuals that, a couple of seconds of the other footage going through. And it really makes it seem much more like a found footage film when you're mixing that stuff in there. Now, it not only is showing off the original relationship for the main characters at the very during before the events of the film, but it's also kind of bringing you back to the fact that these are real people that you're watching as this disaster happens, because it is a disaster movie, except that for these people it's on a really small scale and they're just finding this shit out as it goes along. Which, as the audience member, you don't know shit either, and the marketing helped with that. You didn't know what the fuck that thing was when you first watched this movie. You're learning what the monster is as the characters are, and that was a one hell of an experience at the theater.
Yeah, the first time watching this movie, you not knowing what the monster looks like adds so much to the movie and stuff. Because again, you're only getting these pieces of the monster as the movie goes out, and then later they introduce these kind of parasites that fall off the monster and stuff. And again, none of this is in the trailer, so you are along for the ride the entire time, not knowing what is happening, what is causing this. Like, it's so smart. And talking about the whole plot line or the whole device of this being recorded over something else gives again one of the best things for me at the end of the movie when you see, because again it's record one of the things that got re-recorded was their main couple's trip they had just gone on. So after the end of the movie, we see it cuts to the beginning of the end of their kind of trip to Coney Island, and you see again. And what's great about this movie is it never like goes overboard with its explanation of stuff. It just gives you little pieces there, here and there, and then leaves you to decide about what it is. So at the end of the movie, when you see the trip, you see them on the trip and stuff, you see an object fall into the water from afar, which again, they don't like, it's a blinking if you miss it moment. And the thing is, again, they never tell you, and they don't tell you, was that the monster falling down? Because again, you don't know, is this monster from space? Is this monster that's always been there, but something woke it up? You don't know any of that. Like, they never have that moment in the movie where they go, what, and a full down, well, this monster came from this planet, it's been doing this. None of that. It's just the entire time you are left in the dark as much as the characters are.
Yeah, yeah. And there are a lot of people, especially in this day and age now, where they would say, "Oh man, those are plot holes when you don't explain it." Not really. To be honest with you, you don't need to know all that for the story. The story is literally about Rob, who's trying to save his girlfriend that he loves, and he will do anything to do that. That's pretty much what this story is. Doesn't matter if the monsters are there or not. It doesn't matter if the parasites are there or not. He has his friends who are sticking by him, and he's going into danger zone to save her, because all he has is a distress signal from her, and all he knows is she's in danger. And we go along with Rob as he discovers just how dangerous that journey is to get to her. That's pretty much all you need to know. We do know about the other characters. HUD, who mostly has the camera, who I didn't realize until I rewatched it, was a young TJ Miller. I was like, oh, he
This
looks
was
so
TJ
different.
Miller. It's funny because this was TJ Miller's breakout role.
Was it really?
Yeah, he was not in. This was his first movie, which I did not know until like doing research about this. Like he had been in a TV show, a couple TV shows before then, but this is his breakout role. This is his first movie.
Yeah, and Lizzie Kaplan, who was also fucking forgot she was in this movie too when I was watching it. See, I'm a huge fan of Lizzie Kaplan because of her show Party Down, which I fucking think is a brilliant show that no one watched but me and probably a handful of other people. So I've always been a fan of Lizzie Kaplan. And of course, some of the other the actors in here show up in other stuff like Mike Vogel and But the ideal behind the film is just these friends trying to celebrate Rob's journey to go off to, I forget, where's he supposed to be going? He's going on
He-
somewhere. Europe?
So he's going to Japan.
Oh, he's going to Japan. He's going somewhere in Japan for work, but of course, it's his party before he leaves. Unfortunately, all this shit happens on the night that he's supposed to be leaving. And the film generally takes place within a not even 12-hour period, really. It's a very short amount of time. Because once the monster shows up and starts wreaking havoc on the city, most people are fleeing except for the military who are trying to combat this monster, and of course Rob, who's trying to save his girlfriend Beth, who happens to be trapped in her apartment, and that's pretty much all he knows. And he'll do anything to get to her. I mean, in theory, it's a very simple plot, but the way the plot unfolds and the way that we watch these characters and the relationship that these characters have with one another is what keeps us going through this film, you know?
Oh yeah, no, it's you definitely are they the most like interesting characters? Not really. But none of them, but again, it's going on this journey with them. And again, it's just everything related to uh just the way the story unfolds, the way that some of the characters start to die and stuff in ways that again, it's just unintentional. Again, it's a disaster movie. And again, it's the way the it's just handled is handled very well because you're strapped in with these characters
Mhm.
as you're going on as they're exploring New York trying to again find help as they're trying to find Beth. It's and then once they find Beth trying to get out and stuff, and it's just again it's done very well, very tense and stuff as you don't know what's going to happen.
No, so you bring up tense, and one of the biggest tense moments is when they're in the subway, and they're at first they're waiting out the chaos that's going on, because they think that the subway is a safe place for the time being before they decide that the subway will actually get them closer to where Beth apartment lies. So they decide to go through the tunnels, and because they have to use the camera's light, it makes for a very tense scene, especially when they start to hear things in the tunnel, and then HUD turns on the night vision glasses and sees the parasites. That's a very important scene because not only do we get to see the parasites, probably the best sequence for those creatures, but also it shows how much each of the other characters are going to help each other out. For the first time, you see Marlena. I was about to say Lizzie Kaplan. You see Marlena's character, who's played by Lizzie Kaplan, help HUD out, who gets attacked by one of the little parasites, and unfortunately, she gets stabbed or bitten. Or I can't remember exactly what
She
it was.
she gets bitten
Okay,
and
so
stuff.
she actually gets bitten by one of the creatures, but that whole sequence of them running away from these multiple parasites who have made their way into the subway system is a very tense moment, to the fact that they're running through this tunnel, and then of course they find their way into I guess it's like a office that's off of the subway system. They get in just barely. These parasites trying to get through the door, before they decide what to do next.
Which again, like, and then Marlene ends up dying from that, which is a very gruesome scene. Again, done really well done because again, you don't know what's going on. She immediately gets taken, and then from there, she ends up basically exploding. Which again, they never fully state what's going on. You can only deduce it was she died from the bite from the parasite and stuff, which is hinted earlier in the movie a little bit, both the parasites and the bites effect. Because later on, earlier in the movie, there's a moment like the characters are looking at a news report and they see these creatures fall off the
Mm,
monster and stuff. Which again, we get the payoff with the subway scene, and then also with the bite and stuff. Before that, they come across a couple of soldiers who look like they've been exploded and stuff, and they make a comment of like, "Oh, it's another bite victim," which again, we get the payoff with Marlene when she gets bit, and we see her basically explode from the inside.
hmm and
But
that
the way it's done too, the first time, I there were people who watched it that I remember they thought the military like killed her. They thought the military somehow caused her to die, and it's like no, they actually were trying to help her. It's not until you think more about it and you watch again, you realize, oh, she got killed. She died because of the bite, not because the military killed her. But there were people I saw it with the first time, thought the military killed her.
interesting. I never thought that, but that's interesting. Because in this film, unlike some other films I've seen, the military actually looks like they're trying to help. They're
Yes.
directing people to safety or what they think is safety. And of course, after that sequence in the tunnel, they come across a triage space that they've made into the subway for people who have been victims or been damned or been hurt during this whole disaster. Which I thought, that's probably I didn't think about it until I rewatched that this is more or less a homemade triage at a fucking subway because it's supposedly underground and safer than being anywhere else while monsters rampaging above your heads. Of course, they have to all get out of there as soon as they can. And because of Rob's insistence to go find Beth, they luckily have a soldier who leads them to the right way of getting out and probably reaching her when it's against everything that every other military person is telling them. So the military isn't really bad. They're just trying to keep everyone safe and lead them to safety or what they think will be safe because no one knows what the fuck's going on because it's a giant monster and a bunch of little monsters.
Yep.
So,
Um, what
um,
is what is your thoughts on Clover, the monster design?
So the very first time I saw the movie, I didn't really care for the design because I never got a good enough sense of what it looked like. Now, that being said, I've seen this movie maybe 10 to 15 times now, and I actually almost got the action figure that they built for it, that they did for it. And unfortunately for me, I should have got it when it was relatively cheap because I was just looking it up before the show, and it now goes for about $1,200 to the $2,000, which is astronomically crazy to me when I could
Oh,
have gotten it for like 150 when it originally came out. I should have gotten it then. Uh after seeing the movie for so many times, I really liked the monster, and this was before the U.S. decided to do a remount of the Godzilla, which is I love kaiju movies, so I'm a huge old school Godzilla fan. But when this movie came out, we didn't have a Pacific Rim, we didn't have the Godzilla monsters. This was the closest that we were going to get to a fucking giant monster movie, because no one was doing that. No one thought that that was a viable fucking thing to do. Now we get them all the time. We get giant monster movies all the time. But this design for Clover is still one of my favorites out of all the monsters, except for some of the ones in Pacific Rim, which I really, really love.
so it's funny with that. So, the reason this movie even got made is exactly what you said before. So, J.J. Abrams said he conceived the idea of this movie while being in Japan, and he was looking at Godzilla toys, and he was like, "Man, we really need an American monster. Like we King Kong kind of counts, but also it doesn't really count. Like we need an American kaiju, and that's where the idea of this movie came from." And I'm like, that's great. And again, it's funny because they even make some small references to Godzilla and King Kong in this movie at points. Uh, that's a nice little wink and nod. And yeah, for me personally, I've always liked the design of Clover. I think it's a unique design that does not look like any other monster. I love the design of it. It's just very unique. I also love the concept behind the monster because unlike a lot of monsters, the idea with this monster is that it's a baby. it is not a full grown monster. It is a baby that basically is awakens and is basically going on a rampage because it doesn't know what it's scared. It doesn't it's freaking out because there's all these things happening and it's overwhelmed. The filmmakers talked about how their inspiration for the monster was a horse. They were like, when a horse is scared, its pupils have widened in them because they're freaked out and they don't know what they're doing. And that was the inspiration. One of the inspirations for this monster was the monster has white in its eyes because it's a baby that is just trying to find its mom, and it's freaking out because it doesn't know. It's curious. So the moment in the movie where it kills Hud, it's not killing it because it's being malicious. It's not being like evil about it. It is just, I don't know what this thing is. I'm gonna take a bite out of it because again, that's what I mean. Anyone who's had a dog before knows that like that's what a puppy does. It bites everything because it's like, what is this thing? And so that's what the Clover monster does, is that it doesn't know what's going on, so it's biting things or it's freaking out because it's being attacked and doesn't know what's going on. And I think that's such a clever design or a clever thought process to go about with the monster. It's like it's not Godzilla who's just going on a rampage just because he feels like it. It's a creature who is freaking out because it doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, I've kind of I remember reading about this Clover being a newborn monster, and you can kind of see that in some of the movements as it's moving through buildings or tumbling through buildings. It's like literally like it has it's yeah, it would be like a horse who's trying to get its sea legs and it hasn't gotten it just yet. So it's tumbling and fumbling everywhere. And of course, you have all these military people shooting it with freaking tanks and everything else that you see, which is quite funny to see the tank when it shows up. But yeah, I can see that definitely.
And then also the parasites. I love the parasite designs too.
Yeah,
That was a smart idea again. Adding the parasites. So again, even when the characters are not in the open area, there's still you still can have that sense of tenseness with it for your characters and stuff.
I think it works because you're trying to hold off showing the main monster for so long that having the parasites in that tunnel of the subway scene adds a whole lot, and it allows you to forget that there's a bigger monster at play here when you're watching all these little monsters. It reminds me of the face huggers in Aliens franchise where you have a bunch of fucking face huggers coming at you. That's what these parasites are. They're trying to get to you and bite you and kill you and do whatever the hell else they're going to do to you because they're parasites. Um, that's yeah. I mean, I really yeah. I
And it's a smart idea too of I mean it's not like there's animals all the time that have like gnats or whatever that like will kind of like latch itself on it. So the idea of having a creature uh a creature having a bunch of parasites on it, it's not far-fetched at all.
Yeah, but it's
Um
also a newer concept because you ain't never seen that shit in a Godzilla movie. I think it's a very clever and different concept that the main monster has these parasites that just fall off of it. Um,
Yeah, and the thing too with and then talking about at the time no one's doing kaiju movies, and but now we have Pacific Rim, now we have our American Godzilla. I truly believe Cloverfield is the reason we got that because how successful it was allowed American companies to go, oh, we can do a monster movie and people will go out to see it because they had after the Godzilla in the 1990s, they were like, I think a lot of companies were like, oh well, I don't think American audiences want a monster kaiju movie, and then Cloverfield happened. I think that re-sparked the interest from companies going, oh, American audiences would want to see a kaiju movie if it's done well.
yeah, I'll agree with you on that one because to be honest with you, I don't think there's I'm hard pressed to believe that there has ever been a really successful kaiju movie before this one, other than Godzilla King of the Monsters, which was the Americanized version of Gojira. I don't even know if the Godzilla 1985 was all that successful. Much less, I do know that Godzilla 2000 was not nearly as successful as they wanted it to be, because that one was still a Japanese movie being dubbed and ported off here to theaters after the American Matthew Broderick Godzilla. I don't think you're getting a sense now that there wasn't really like a successful one of these kaiju movies until like Cloverfield came out, and it proved that this concept could work if taken seriously.
Yep, it's just again, you just needed an actual again, you just needed good writing and stuff
Yeah.
and that's again, and they did it and then this movie did it very well and stuff. And it sparked the interest of people doing it. So yeah, no, I again, I'm very thankful for because I'm also a big Godzilla fan too, and so I was very thankful with this movie, the fact that it was able to re-spark the interest of doing kaiju movies again in America, since they definitely at the time people were too afraid to do that.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
Go ahead.
uh, going a little speculation about the movie and stuff.
Okay.
What do you think is the origin of Clover? Do you think it came from space? We're not gonna we're taking Cloverfield paradox out of the equation
I
for
can't take it
now.
out of there because I've seen the movie already. Since I've already seen all three movies, and I recently rewatched. I mean, so everyone listening, so for your franchise month, since we watched all three and we did episodes on all three, those are all really readily available in our mind's eye. So I can't not place the Cloverfield paradox within this framework. Now, I can say that when this movie originally came out, without thinking about 10 Cloverfield Lane or Cloverfield Paradox, I kind of saw this as a kaiju movie mixed in with a little bit of H.P. Lovecraft. So this is some fucking one of H.P. Lovecraft's monsters from the netherworld that has come or found its way here in the U.S., and it's a newborn, and it's just wrecking havoc everywhere, with its little parasite demonic type little creatures as well. That's kind of how I pictured it originally. And you can still picture it like that. You can't dismiss the Cloverfield paradox. All it does is say, "Oh well, this experiment went horribly wrong, and we may have mixed in multiple different dimensions or worlds, frames of reality, or even hell. So there could be a monster world out there that's kind of mixed in with this one, or think of it like The Mist, Frank Darabont's version of Stephen King's The Mist. Somebody fucked up somewhere. We have these giant fucking monsters here." That would be the coolest concept if it was like that. Because I really love The Mist, and we've talked about The Mist in a previous podcast. So you guys listening out there, you can always go check that out. But that idea that there is an alternate world that somehow just mixes with ours and allowed this creature to come here, is always, fundamentally how I see the Clover monster and the parasite. I do kind of, after watching like 10 Cloverfield Lane, I do kind of wish that I'd seen more different ones. Um, but that's how I place this. When you listen to our episode of 10 Cloverfield Lane, I'll get into more ideas of what I think all that stuff has to do with this. But yeah.
Uh, Okay. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned H.P. Lovecraft because that was another rumor that everyone had about this movie, about what the creature looked like, was it was going to either be an HP, it's going to be a creature, one of the creatures from an H.P. Lovecraft story and stuff, which again, that would end up not being the case. And it's funny because TJ Miller ends up being in a fun fact, TJ Miller ends up being in a movie that has an H.P. Lovecraft monster later on in Underwater. Uh, but uh, but yeah, for me, even with Paradox, I'm going to still, in my kind of own head canon, especially with all the other stuff, I do like the idea again of the creature being something that was maybe always here, but was awakened from. I do believe the last shot is a satellite falling down, and then that awakening it, and then again, it doesn't know what's going on, and then that's how it ends up eventually, it destroys the oil, an oil station, which is shown off in a kind of a clip, and then again, eventually it ending up in New York, which uh, is interesting. And what's also interesting about this movie is again the idea of a sequel, because obviously we got 10 Cloverfield Lane and we got Paradox, which are both movies that are not direct sequels. They're again, because this is when we started getting into the anthology, which was a great idea and stuff. But it's been so interesting about hearing them constantly talk about ideas for a sequel. One of the most famous ones is that them talking about basically doing the movie again, but from a different character's perspective, because there's a scene on the Brooklyn Bridge where the HUD is filming and he sees another character filming from the other side of the bridge, and a lot of people took that, and even Matt Reeves himself took that and talked about the idea of doing this movie again, but through different characters' perspectives and how that would potentially change the outlook of the movie from doing the same thing over again, but from someone else's perspective, which I think is a really fun idea. Probably they're not going to do it like that. Who knows if we even will get a sequel at this point, even though they keep claiming they may do a direct sequel to this. But
They'll never do one. It'll just be another spin-off movie with the concept, which I don't want a sequel to this. Characters are
no,
fucking dead. They're dead.
yeah,
Do something. I like the not. I like having a adjacent sequels.
yeah,
Um, and in theory, there's supposedly in development another one, but who the hell knows how close they are with that? We Cloverfield Paradox kind of sprung up on all of us when that came out of nowhere.
and
I,
then and that was not received as well either in comparison to the other two. So it's going to be very interesting. I do. I'm not sure about if the characters are alive or dead. They probably are dead. I think the creature is alive because they kind of. It's interesting because even though in the end credits there is a Easter egg showing that the creature might still be alive, J.J. Abrams said otherwise, which is really weird because it kind of contradicts what you say in the movie itself. So I think the creature's still alive at the end, but that's just me.
well, also keep in mind that they all didn't die at the end of the movie, which I forgot about that. Lily does not die in the
Yeah.
movie. She gets in the first helicopter that actually escapes, whereas HUD, Beth, and Rob get in the second helicopter. I had forgotten about that till I rewatched it, that she got in the first helicopter and seemingly escapes. So you could always do a legacy sequel that has her character in it. You know, her still reeling after all of her friends having died. Who the hell knows? Legacy sequels are dime a dozen nowadays. It seems to be the cool thing to do. So you could always do a sequel on that kind of trajectory. Uh, of course, depending on how much of 10 Cloverfield Lane and Cloverfield Paradox you mix in with that.
Yes. Absolutely. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm very much, but I'm okay with them not exploring stuff anymore, especially at this point. It's like I, the only thing I would be, I, because I definitely think if they cover it, I feel like especially now, found footage is back to not being popular anymore. So I don't think they would do a found footage monster movie again. So it's like it would be, which honestly, I think that's half of the thing, the charm about this movie is that it's found footage. Because I don't think I'm curious your opinion on this, Kevin. I
Mm.
don't think this movie would be as successful if it was not a found footage movie. I think it works because it's a found footage movie with a monster.
I'm up in the air about that one, to be honest with you, because it was a found footage film before found footage films had really become have run their course, is why it's really successful. It jumped it. I don't want to say it jumped on the bandwagon because there wasn't a bandwagon to really jump off of after Blair Witch Project. Blair Witch Project was like this one and done, and people didn't jump on the bandwagon to continue that trend. Found footage films kind of hit their heyday a little bit after that. But this film was always one that that kind of was still in general audience's mind. Because once they started getting to everything like the Gallows and Devil's Due and all the other ones, it's just we got to make a found footage about the devil. We got to have to make a found footage about exorcism. We got to make it. I mean, people were like, it was a gimmick at that point. The gimmick about this one is like it's a giant monster movie. No one would ever think a found footage film would ever be a fucking giant monster movie. um, and so when they did a sequel, 10 Cloverfield Lane, we weren't getting a found footage film. We were getting something completely different. And I guarantee you that there are more people who love the second one than they did the first one because they got caught in the first one. Like they didn't know they were going to watch a film with a lot of shaky cam in it. When it was just like a cool concept. They were all taken in by the trailers. They were all taken in they were all taken in by the aesthetics of that first movie, but they weren't going to fall for it again. And then we had 10 Cloverfield Lane. I don't think we could do a found footage Cloverfield again. I think you could do a remake, and it'd be interesting, like you said, to do like a perspective of a different character. I think that would be a cool concept to do it. I think that time has passed because people are now used to seeing the monster. You can't hide it. It'd be cool to do, but you couldn't hide it, so I don't know how you attempt that. But
yeah, it's interesting because with found footage too, because like there's always been like found footage like happening and stuff, but like it's funny because after Blair Witch, Cloverfield actually is really the next big found footage movie, mainstream found footage movie at the time until like it's funny because the timeline thinks Cloverfield comes out and then the next year we get District 9, which is another found footage like movie that again hit the mainstream, and then also that same year we got Paranormal Activity, which then really started us back into the found footage stuff. So it was interesting that Cloverfield was, even though technically Paranormal Activity was filmed, it wasn't released until 2009, but like yeah, everyone kind of forgets that period, like 2008, 2009, was really began the renaissance again of found footage. Because I remember, like, during that time, because how successful Cloverfield was doing and Paranormal Activity and District 9, I remember them talking about the next Friday the 13th movie was going to be a found footage, which never happened.
yeah, there
Which
was.
I would love to see. I would love to see Friday 13th found footage, but
Yeah.
that's
And well, the thing is, Paranormal Activity, unfortunately, as mixed reception with the sequels as they are, because they were putting out one of those every year for what, 6 years? I have
yeah.
lost track of how many there are. For like 6 years, it became an aesthetic that people just got tired of after a while. It was, for that like that small window, they were cranking out those found footage films. Like you'd have like 5 or 10 a year, and it would, like I said, you had The Last Exorcism, Devil's Due, Devil's Inside. There were everything was being made into a freaking found footage film. Doesn't matter what. Phoenix Forgotten, there was like tons of them. Whether it was a sci-fi film like Chronicle or a horror film, or even I think it's the one that's I think the party one. I think it's Project X. I could be wrong.
Yes, Project X,
Yeah,
yes.
because I hadn't seen that one yet. Everyone was trying to figure out, how to use found footage in the best way. Every genre was made. There was a found footage film. Doesn't matter what they were being made all the time, and then they quickly died, and
Yeah.
people stopped going to go see them. They still proliferated on straight to video, straight to streaming, but at the theatrical, people just stopped watching them.
Yep.
And then we had a brief moment where found footage might come back in a different way, which is the computer monitor stuff that made the movie Host and Unfriended and the other one popular. The one I can't even think of the other one. I wish I could.
I know what you're
Searching.
talking
Is it
about.
Searching? I think it was.
Searching. Yeah, it was searching.
Um, that type of using different aesthetics to do another type of found footage thing, but doing it in a different way. that didn't we just didn't have a really hugely popular one like Paranormal Activity to keep that trend going, even though some of those were successful. So
Yeah, so I think with Cloverfield and stuff, a sequel, maybe if Matt Reeves and J.J. Abrams are both attached, maybe it could be good. But honestly, at this point, I am fully okay with not having a legacy sequel, and at this point, just again, leaving Cloverfield where it is, and that's fine with me.
uh, I can see that. Is that you're going to be your final thoughts for the film?
Yeah, no, again, going to final thoughts is again, Cloverfield, I think it's a really a kind of a genie in a bottle, in my opinion, of just again, I think uh this was just done so smart. A lot of this was J.J. Abrams' hand, even though this is a Matt Reeves movie, like some fun facts like uh where J.J. Abrams had a hand in things. So originally they were not going to have HUD, the scene with HUD and the monster. It wasn't until J.J. Abrams came in and was like, "Hey, I think we need to have a move. We think we need to have a moment where you are actually seeing the monster fully." Did they bring that back? Because originally HUD was going to survive. He was not. He was going to be in the bomb shelter with the other two when it went off. But J.J. Abrams like, no, the audience should. We need a payoff. We need to show the monster completely and stuff. Uh, and there was some other stuff too throughout the movie that like J.J. Abrams definitely had a hand on making this as successful as it was, along with the marketing and stuff. Like all of that was just it's funny because again, Cloverfield was not the original title they were going to go with. They were going to go. They were talking of making it the Gray Shot, Slushos. Like they went through a lot of different titles. Cloverfield was a working title, which for people who don't work in film, a lot of times films never get their original title right away. A lot of times they have a workshop title that they'll do so that way people, normal general public won't stumble onto the set and stuff. But for this is one of the few times that they kept the original working title because that's just what everyone just referred it to as and was like, okay, let's keep it as is, which was great. But again, like there was so much secrecy. Another fun fact with this was all the actors who auditioned for this could not find like they were not sent the script until they signed on. So what they had the actors do was they auditioned with other J.J. Abrams scripts from his other stuff and they used that to audition for this movie. And it wasn't until after they got onto the movie did they know, oh, this was a monster movie. One of the actresses, who was it? Actually thought this was a romantic movie, like a romantic movie when she first signed on to it until she saw the script. Lizzie. So Lizzie
Yeah.
Chaplin thought it was a romantic movie. It wasn't until she got the script she was like, "Oh, this is a monster movie." Uh, so again, like there was just so much care put into this movie that I think what helped elevate this to something that's a genie in a bottle that I just don't think you can recreate. But that being said, I could gush about this movie all day about the marketing and stuff. But yeah, this is definitely um if if you don't get motion sickness, I think this movie is worth it to see if you haven't seen it. It's definitely a movie that has a lot of rewatch you can rewatch it a lot because there's a lot of things you may not pick up the first time. And again, I think it's just, and if you are someone who didn't know about some of all the viral marketing, definitely watch it. Definitely like, because there's a lot of care that was put into the marketing with this movie that like, if you didn't know about that, if you watched that, you will appreciate the movie a lot more.
Hey, I just want one of the Clover monster figures, dude. But I'm not shelling out no 2 grand for it. I tell you. Oh shit. All right. Well, I want to thank you, Philip, for joining me on this conversation about Cloverfield. For everyone else out there listening, what we like to do is we like to go through and kind of rate the movie based on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being poor, 5 being amazingly excellent, and all that jazz. Where on the spectrum, Philip, do you put Cloverfield?
It, I really kind of want to say a 10 out of 10. Um,
We're doing 1 out of 5.
oh, 1 out of 5. Uh, I'm gonna say, no, I'm gonna say a 5. I'm gonna go
Okay,
with
I
I'm gonna
don't
go with my
say
best.
you should just say a 5, dude.
Yeah,
We all know.
it's a 5. I do understand. Again, some of the main cast, none of them are going to be like. Again, I remember HUD the most because, well, A is T.J. Miller, and also again because he's the one who's holding the camera.
Because he's on
Uh,
camera.
but again, like, are the characters that memorable like themselves? No. But again, this is a monster movie, and you're coming here to watch the monster, and they deliver on that wholeheartedly. And again, like, from my following of like when this movie came out, and again, I will always go back to it all the time and stuff. It's a 10. It's a 5 out of 5 for me.
See, I kind of disagree with you. I must say this right now. I'm gonna disagree with you in regards to the characters. I think the characters are very interesting because you get to see these three best friends, Jason, his brother Rob, and HUD at this party, and they all have a different personality. And before the monster shows up, you're getting a really good glimpse into how they operate and how they treat each other and their girlfriends. The way that Jason treats his girlfriend Lily, and how much Rob kind of hates the fuck up that he did with Marlena, and then of course with HUD, who has this deep crush. Oh no, I got my not Beth. Rob is with Beth. HUD's with Marlene. Wants to be with Marlena. Like he's been pining over this girl for so long, and she just doesn't have a clue. Despite the fact that they've met several times. I think that first part of this movie does a really good job kind of crafting these characters, which then pay off when they all decide to help Rob out to go get Beth, who's a friend of theirs, instead of go to safety. Like they could have gone to safety, but they all have a reason to stay with Rob, and I think they did a good job of it. But that being said, I am actually not going to give it as bigger. I'm not going to give it a 5 like Philip. I'm going to give it a 4.5. I really enjoy this film. I think it's a great example of found footage films. I think it's one of the best ones that were produced in the last 20 or odd years. I can't remember when the movie came out itself. And I love the fact of the experience of seeing it in the theater. Now, the problem with it is I will never get that back because I've already seen it the one time, and it's one of those things where once you have that exhilaration of seeing the movie with a huge crowd and all that, it kind of loses something on subsequent rewatches. It's the same way I have the feeling I had with watching The Game. Once you know the object of the game isn't all that interesting of a movie anymore. So you literally have to stop watching it for 20 years and forget the entire movie and then rewatch it, not knowing what the hell happens anymore. I can't do that with Cloverfield because I've seen it like 20 times. So I'm like you. I can just stick it in, and I will say this: every time I stick it in, I will sit down, and it doesn't matter what part of the movie it is. I'll sit down and stop what I'm doing, and I'll watch it. This is one of those type of movies. I will just sit down and watch it. And that is one of those type of. This is one of those type of movies. So I do believe that motion sickness for some people does diminish the film. We both know our friend Howard, who can't stand this movie because he says he got motion sickness watching it and will vow never to watch it again. I find
Oh
those
yeah.
stories hilarious. I really do find those stories hilarious for people. I've never gotten that feeling from a single found footage film. So I hope that you all out there listening to this never got motion sickness watching Cloverfield. And if you did, please leave in the comments your story about watching this movie. Uh, with that, I want to thank you all for joining us on Conversations in Horror to talk about Cloverfield. Please, 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 please make sure to check out the episodes for the other films in this franchise, 10 Cloverfield Lane and the Cloverfield Paradox. Whether you have seen them, the films, or not, I think you will enjoy our conversations about them. Make sure to check out previous episodes of the program on your favorite podcast app, Spotify or YouTube. Also, make sure to like, subscribe, do that thing you do, because every Wednesday at 8 a.m. is when we release new episodes, our regular episodes, and then on Mondays at 8 a.m. we will do special themed episodes every once in a while. From all of us here at Something Wicked Entertainment, we want to wish you a pleasant day and make sure to keep watching those horror films and keep supporting those horror franchises. Have a good day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.